Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Media Boat Podcast, the weekly rundown where we give you the best in movies, TV, music, and video games. Not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Thank you for joining us at the Media Boat Podcast. I don't know if it's the best in all of those things. We do talk about things, but I don't know if we should go out of the gate saying that they're the best of those things.
We are on episode 429, I believe. So yes,
No, I think
I
I
would
updated.
say.
I think you hadn't updated from last week, so I put the 8 there. I think this is 428.
Well, let me confirm here. But yeah,
Yeah, confirm
anyways.
that. And it is March the 24th, 2024. Can you believe by the next time we record, it will be the last day of March? We're almost in April.
Next time we record, it's going to be Easter. So Easter in March is still a
Yeah.
weird issue. And yes,
More
this is
important,
episode 428.
28. And more importantly, by the next time we record, baseball will have started.
Oh, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, big baseball week. Let me tell you, we're going to talk a lot about baseball today and in many forms, controversial and non-controversial. So strap in for that. But before we do all that, why don't we start with the music?
And we start the music section with the Billboard. And we start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And the hottest song in the land is...
We
Sorry, Matt.
can't be friends.
We
No,
can't be
no, no,
friends.
no, 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 no. Yeah.
Yeah, We Can't Be Friends by Ariana Grande. Coming in at 2, Lose Control by Teddy Swims. At 3, Beautiful Things by Benson Boone. At 4 is Carnival by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign, but really it's because it's featuring Rich the Kid and Playboy Cardi. And rounding out your top 5, Lovin' On Me by Jack Harlow.
Mm-hmm.
As for your Billboard 200, your albums chart, no surprise here, Ariana Grande debuting to number 1 with Eternal Sunshine. Coming in at number 2, One Thing at a Time by Morgan Wallen.
Mm-hmm.
At 3 is Stick Season by Noah Khan. Coming in at 4, Vultures 1 by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. And rounding out your top 5, SOS by SZA. If that all sounds familiar, that's because Ariana Grande was the only new one entered.
Yeah, so congratulations, Ari. This is her 6th number 1 record. And I don't know what number this is of her number 1 single. But yeah, congratulations to nabbing the top spot for both categories this week. Congratulations, Ariana.
But you won't hold that on for too long because we have new releases. Starting with Live, Laugh, Love by Chastity Belt. Final, Volume 2, which is a weird issue statement because it's not the final.
Weird way to put that.
Yes. The second final, I guess, by Enrique Iglesias. Yes, that Enrique Iglesias.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Moves in the Field by Kelly Moran. Interplay by Ride. Evolution by Sheryl Crow. Yes, that Sheryl Crow. And your big album of the week, Heaven, Cross, Hell by Sum 41. Yes, that Sum 41.
It is their final album. Fun fact. They have said that this is it.
Until this one does bonkers numbers, and then they're like, well, maybe we could do more, I guess.
I do not think we live in a world in which Sum 41 is going to do bonkers numbers, quote unquote, but sure, keep living in that.
Well, I don't know. I guess bonkers could both be a good thing and a bad thing. So
Bonkers, the show, was not very good.
Yes, but like bonkers googly eyes is like a good thing though. So
yeah, shout out to Bonkers, Disney's Bonkers. Anyways,
yes, the weird cat Bonkers.
Yes, yeah, with the cop. Yeah,
yep.
That was a weird show. But you missed one. The one everybody get out of the way because it's time.
Yep. It is the end of March and it is springtime. It is here, and the bees come out for the
Yes,
queen
it's true. Both are true.
because Act Two, Cowboy Cotter is here by Beyonce.
Yes, so we'll be able to talk about this next week. We will both probably be listening to this out of just
Yes.
sheer morbid curiosity, but also because it's probably going to be one of the biggest records of the year. Yeah, I gotta know. I just have to know.
We got to know, did she make a comeback?
Well, can Beyonce really make a comeback ever? I feel like she's just perpetually the biggest thing in the world.
Well, yes, but the last time she was on a country music stage, she got the shaft.
Well, yes. Yeah, she made a statement. I'm glad you brought that up because I don't actually have that story this week because it wasn't really news. But basically, it was Beyonce making a statement herself, being like, one of the reasons why she wanted to do this was to kind of prove a point because there was a, what was it, 2006?
2016.
2016 CMA performance in which she joined the Chicks on the stage and was, I guess, faced with some difficulty backstage dealing with both staff and guests at the show, had a lot of negative feedback about her appearance on the CMA stage. Take a guess on why and why the demographic who watches the CMAs might have a problem with Beyonce. Just take a guess. Take a wild stab in the dark there. And yeah, and so it's still stuck with her. That event has stuck with her all this time. And so she feels like she needs to make like remind people that it's not necessarily genre does not necessarily go by racial boundaries, and all power to her. Like, go out there, prove everybody wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm also interested because will this be like a country record or just another Beyonce record?
I mean, the template I think we need to look at is Renaissance,
Mhm.
which is a dance record, but it's a dance record through a Beyonce lens, and I think that that's ultimately what Cowboy Carter will be. I think it's going to be, well, one of the things she says in her Instagram statement that I'm referencing is that it is not genre, like it's not a country record, it is a Beyonce record. She wants to make sure that the genre is Beyonce, not country. Basically, her saying, like, she's making this her own and it is going to be her first and then inspired by a lot of the country artists she admires. I think that's the way we should probably be looking at it.
Well, we get to talk about it next week.
Yes, indeed.
On a glorious Easter Sunday,
Yeah, you know what?
talking about Beyonce.
This what the Lord wanted, honestly.
Yes, the Lord wanted us to talk about the Queen Bee.
Exactly.
All right,
But
let's
anyway,
get into some music news, shall we?
yes.
And we start with our first betting story.
Yeah, we have a theme this week. I didn't do that on purpose, but sort of ended up this way.
So, MGM Resorts, famous for Las Vegas MGM Grand and other resorts on Las Vegas Strip,
Yeah.
they've came to Bruno Mars's defense on Monday after rumors circulated about the Grammy winner's debt with the casino. In the last week, a report from News Nation made claims that Bruno Mars had racked up over $50 million in gambling debt at MGM. They cited an anonymous source close to the situation that said Mars allegedly made $90 million a year through his residencies at MGM Grand, but was using a large chunk of that profit to pay off his gambling debt. Quote, the report claimed, he will only make 1.5 million per night after taxes. MGM basically owns him, they added. A spokesman for MGM Resorts International tells Variety that these allegations are completely false, as Mars has no debt with MGM. So this is
Okay.
just some good old classic money sleuthing gone awry.
So yeah, what do you think is the truth here? So this basically went viral over the course of the weekend and into the week. And where do you think this came from? First of all, do you think there's like insiders at the casino being like, oh, he's always at those tables and he's always losing? Or is this like a broader like attack on Bruno Mars's character? Like they just people just look at him and be like, yeah, he's probably in super like big debt. I feel like there's something missing here. Like there has where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Like where did this come from?
I see it as not as the story's being told, but rather as an inverse of it. Is that we at MGM would like to pay you $90 million for your entire residency. However, much like we see in deals with like sports and entertainment, because this is MGM or Bruno Mars and MGM is obviously in sports entertainment, that they will pay him half of that in cash and the other half in buyback stock credit. I mean, casino chips that he can then use at the resort.
So what he sees is just a business deal. Some other person without the context could see that and be like, he has a lot of gambling issues. Like, what's going on with this guy? He's all the time at the tables. Like, I don't know. You could be right. That seems weird though. I mean, are they making that same deal with Adele? You see Adele betting everything on red? Like, I don't know about that.
No, only Taylor Swift bets on red. Wait, no, that's wrong. Taylor Swift bets on herself.
No, we're like 10 years out from Taylor Swift's Vegas residency. Come on.
Yes.
If it ever, honestly. I don't know about this. This is such a weird story. I'm not the biggest Bruno Mars fan, I will say. I'll be the first to say.
Not since Gorilla.
Oh, God. Gorilla. Not on that song in a long time.
It's the one song I always like bringing up, and everyone says, "Oh, I love Bruno Mars." Oh, really? Do you like? What about Gorilla?
Gorilla. That song sucks. Yeah, I don't.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please just look up Gorilla by Bruno Mars.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just a weird one. I'm glad that I guess MGM stepped in and like defended their artist, but like at the same time, like I don't know. It's weird. It's just definitely a weird story, and I don't know where the truth is here.
I mean, I think that's why I said that, because it's not MGM is coming out saying that it's false. There is no debt with MGM, and that's key because it's not a debt that Bruno Mars owes MGM.
Well,
it's just part of the contract that he has with them.
Perhaps over time we'll see if your tinfoil hat theory is true. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's more of a crown at this point because I just keep nailing these theories.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. We'll see, but I don't know who to believe here. But
you don't know which side to bet on.
Yeah, I don't. All right, let's put the gambling on the table for now and then come back to it later. In the meantime, let's do some music this week.
Yes, we listened to some albums this week.
We did.
I will go first because Kenny Chesney has put out his 20th album.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question I always ask when Kenny Chesney records come up on here. Is this a chill out on the beach record? Or is this a serious dramatic record? Which Kenny Chesney did we get this time?
A little bit of both, actually. Ooh. I think more chill out vibes, because this album is very much a chillaxing vibe. It's very much what you think of when you think of Kenny Chesney, which is No Shoes Nation.
Yeah, that beer chair on the sand. Beach.
Yeah. Chair on the beach. Yep. Beer in the hand. Ladies walking by.
Sure.
It's a very relaxful album, but it's also a very like introspective, like personal album, because this is his 20th album. So it feels a bit more of a like a thought experiment of like, where have I been these past 20
albums? Reflective. It's reflective, you're saying.
It's reflective, but it's also kind of repetitive, because he's just taking some stuff that he's done before, talking about the same stuff he's done before, and is repackaging it into the new album, Born.
Okay.
But at the same time, the same thing can be said about Jimmy Buffett, the late Jimmy Buffett, where the same kind of aura about him where you know what you want and you know what your fans want.
Yeah.
So it's not really pandering if it's gonna, one, make you money, but two, it's what your fans want. It's like, hey, you guys love this kind of music, this kind of vibe.
It's something that I don't want to say it's unique to country music. It actually kind of reminds me of the conversation we had over the Blink 182 record,
Yes.
where it's like, I think you just get to a certain size of audience and you kind of have to play the hits. You kind of corner yourself into the nostalgia circuit. And Kenny Chesney has had a illustrious career. You mentioned 20 records. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Over 20 years now, being in this business, maybe even 30 for Kenny at this point. He's getting there, probably close.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you get to a point where like you're a touring musician first. And I think that's the case for Kenny, is like now he's like, well, I'm touring. People want to hear me do No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problems. They want to hear me do the hits.
Play the
And
hits.
I have to also do new music because that's the contract I have with my label. How do I bridge those two things, those separate ideas? How do I bring them together? And you're describing exactly how you do that, which is you make stuff that sounds like your old stuff, that references your old stuff, that includes the fans, and maybe doesn't do anything too daring or creative.
It doesn't, but that's the thing, it doesn't need to do anything because anybody who's
Allegedly. Again, it depends
alleged,
on where that need is coming from, right? Are you the label saying, well, you don't need to do that? Or are you maybe a fan who wants to hear something fresh and you're disappointed by that? Those
see,
people
but
probably
here's
also
the thing though,
exist.
that like if you're new to this album and you're new to Kenny Chesney music,
Mm,
I feel like any of the past 5 albums that he's done, you can use any one of those as like a jumping point into Kenny Chesney music.
right.
So that's why it's like the last 5 albums, like all kind of sound relatively the same. But
If
if you
it's,
really
yeah.
like that vibe, and
Yeah, I guess so.
there are a lot of people that really do, then it's like an
Sure.
album just like suited for you.
And yeah, and country as a genre does support that, I think, a little bit more than other genres does. It's like it's almost the expectation. Like you have
Mhm.
a lane, you stay in it. That's why the outliers like Taylor Swift are outliers, because or Casey Musgraves more recently is like, well, you start in this lane and then you're like, well, actually, I don't want to stay in this lane for several reasons. But you see with a lot of the male artists, they absolutely stay in that lane and they are very strict to it and they very rarely do anything super experimental. But yeah, for better or for worse, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Born by Kenny Chesney, his 20th album. It's worth a listen to. It's not
Is
like
it
it's a bad album,
are
but
the
it's
any of
also like
these?
if you're not, if you know what you're getting
Yeah.
into with Kenny Chesney, then it's gonna be exactly what you think it is.
So here's my one last question then. If you, and presumably this probably will happen, if, the next time you see Kenny Chesney,
Yes.
are you excited for him to play any of these songs?
I don't know, because they're more like relaxed, not like the big bombastic ones.
Okay.
Like Noise from his last album, which I really liked.
Okay.
Like that's like a big like anthem album or anthem song. But it's like this is, like I said, this is more like a chillax, like you said, like a reflective album.
Fair enough. Okay.
But you listen to not one, but
Yes.
2 different albums.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I listened to the new record by Waxahachie, Tiger's Blood, and the new record, solo record from Adrienne Lenker of Big Thief, Bright Future. And we're going to continue this theme that we've been going on this so far, this section, with, hey, this is country adjacent, you could say. These are artists in the indie sphere that are doing folk, Americana, country inspired music. And so it's kind of like the flip of the coin of the Kenny Chesneys of the world. What the I would say underground, but they're bigger than that. So I would say like something the middle ground, I guess you could say, where it's like artists that if you're not huge in the indie sphere, you still may have heard of, but also that are respected critically by the people who are kind of in the underground. And both of these artists kind of fall into that category. So first, Waxahachie. So last year, no, my God, 2 years ago now, I talked about their last album, Saint Cloud, which kind of leaned more into that country sound. Katie Crutchfield, who is the artist behind Waxahachie, not necessarily somebody who like has country ties, but I think she enjoys that kind of folky Americana type sound, and she's really leaned into it, starting with St. Cloud and even further into this. And also notable about this, St. Cloud very much was her sobriety record. It was a record that she wrote a lot about her experience choosing to go into a sober lifestyle after, realizing that that world was not necessarily for her. And it was about that growth, about that change. This is detached from that. This is less about that sobriety journey and just more general. And you get a lot of relationship songs. You get a lot of songs about like, two people are kind of on the rocks with each other. You get songs about like travel, about like grand sweeping vistas. And it's very, very effective. I think I like this. I don't know if I like this better than St. Cloud. Both are excellent records, and I think both really show you the strengths of Katie's songwriting and approach. I struggle to say which one is better, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, if that sounds at all interesting, if you want to explore kind of the indie side of the Americana folk sphere, Waxahachie's last couple records are a great place to start, including Tiger's Blood. It's got some excellent, excellent songwriting. Then on a similar wavelength, Adrienne Lenker. Like I mentioned, she is the singer for Big Thief, a indie band that has gotten huge over the last few years. And yeah, if you like Big Thief's music, Adrienne's solo career is very much in the same vein. It's a little quieter than Waxahachie's stuff, a little bit more acoustic, a bit more kind of by the fireplace kind of vibe, as opposed to a full band. It's intimate. She's got a very specific vocal style, which I think will either turn some people off or bring more people in, depending on kind of your taste for vocals. But I think it's excellent. It's a great collection of songs. It's like it feels very. I just keep coming back to the word intimate. I'm trying to think of other words.
Personal.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for the thesaurus. But yeah, like I said, pretty much if you like Big Thief stuff, a lot of why Big Thief works so well is because of Adrienne's songwriting and delivery. And a lot of that carries over into her solo work. And again, you get a lot of that influence from the folk Americana vibe, and both are very excellent at translating that. Honestly, they're both kind of hard to talk about because of so much of it is the experience of actually listening to the music. Mm-hmm. But taken as a piece with the Kenny Chesney stuff you talked about, it goes to show you the depth of a single genre and how you can do all sorts of things within that space. And whereas people who maybe that person I described in the audience of a Kenny Chesney song that's like, I wish you would do something fresh and original. They have the opportunity then to expand that reach and look at stuff like Adrienne Lenker and like see, oh, there are artists that are doing something that is similar in kind of inspiration, but different and new and fresh sounding and harkens back to maybe an earlier era of the genre as opposed to what it has become. Not necessarily, holy shit, I just saw the biggest spider on the drapes in front of me. Oh my God, it's huge. Sorry. I know we're
That does not play for audio, but
oh my God. I'm like just terrified right now.
A complete segue there.
I'm gonna try to do the show normally. I don't know how I can kill it. Hold on. Maybe I can kill it real quick. Hold on. Live on tape. Vamp while I do this.
Yes. Anyways, while you go ahead and try and kill a spider, I'm going to go ahead and try and kill some time here by saying that, yeah, that's the great thing about country music is that that's why they have their own award show, that they have all these different sounds, different genres, all coming into country music. That's not that huge.
It was huge.
It's not that huge.
There's still some legs up there. I apologize to the arachnophobes in our audience. Anyway, sorry.
I think you want to approve of the arachnophobes approve of this because they're scared of it.
That's true. I did just murder one.
Yes. So good job.
Sorry. Anyway.
Anyways, yeah, as I was saying that this is like why country music is just so vast, and anyone who says they don't like country music just hasn't really given it a shot, because there's the old, the classic, the new, the experimental, the Americana, the folk, as you mentioned, the blues. Like country music as its umbrella genre filters down into a bunch of different outlets that I don't just says like, oh, country's not for me. I feel like they're not even getting a real shot, because there's a lot there to dive into.
And to circle back to the Beyonce record, I think that's what Beyonce is trying to say, right? Is that like, well, it can be all these things. It can be what you want, because ultimately, so I don't want to say genre doesn't exist or shouldn't exist, or, you know,
monogenre.
Exactly. Like there's an argument for that, but I think that there's a more nuanced take there, which is I think genre matters as it is in a categorization way. And also I think that to not necessarily organize my genre is to ignore inspirations and what built something to exist. It's context. It's context for why something sounds the way it does. So that's true, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a box. It's not necessarily some like metal box that you're shoving everything into, and it needs to fit those confines. We've proven over time that it's not that. It can break out of that box. It can be all sorts of things inspired by other things on top of the inspirations that's built in. And so I think both can be true. I think you can have stuff like genres matter for certain reasons, but also you can say like, well, no, all this is this genre through a vision, through a specific person's lens. And I think that all of this stuff is that. So yeah. Music. It's pretty cool.
Yes, and we're not done with Country Train, because as you mentioned, next week, Beyonce.
Yes. We will talk about Beyonce next week and have a version of this conversation again. So get ready.
Probably.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, let's go into some video games, and we start with new releases, including Bulwark, Falconeer Chronicles for everything but the Switch. We also have Grandia HD Collection for the PS4 and Xbox One. That's not a typo.
No, I think obviously those games can be played on the current gen platforms as well, but like, because that's how this generation works. But yeah, it is kind of funny to see it that way.
Yes. We also have Millennia for the PC. Planet Zoo: Console Edition for the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Felix the Cat, coming straight from the 1920s to your PS5, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. Open Roads is open. It's for everything. You got it. You can play it. Same thing with Stasis: Bone Totem. It's open. It's everywhere. You got it. You can play it.
Never let somebody text you if they try to show you their bone totem. Just block them. Block them right away.
I believe that's a witch doctor's favorite emojis. There's also Pepper Grinder for the PC and the Switch. This was shown at the Switch.
The Nintendo Direct, the third-party Direct, yes, they showed off some footage of Pepper Grinder. This is the drill dozer like.
Yeah, this one looked interesting.
Yeah.
If there's a demo, I might check it out. Then there's also Touch Detective 3.
Don't touch
plus
that detective.
The complete case files for the Switch.
Don't touch that detective.
Well, this is the third time you're doing it, so they must enjoy Touch Detective.
Touch Detective 3, you're in jail now.
3 touches and you're out.
Yeah.
But everything out of the way, big release coming straight from Colorado. South Park: Snow Day for the PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, and the Switch. Gone is the 2D, 2.5D landscape. This is a true 3D model from South Park Studios.
Not the first time they've done that, but yes.
Yes. First time since the 90s, 2000s.
About that.
I want to say it was like for like the GameCube, there was a 3D version.
Sorry, the GameCube did not exist in the 90s, but I think what you're referring to is the N64 South Park game.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how old South Park is. That there was
Yes,
a
that's how
Nintendo
old South
64
Park
game.
is.
Yeah.
Well, see, I was thinking in 64. I thought, no, that's way too old. That's why I went
No,
GameCube.
no.
Like,
That
no,
was
no, that's right.
that was a 1998, I believe, N64 game.
Yeah. Well, only took them 20 years, 15 years, math,
25 years.
25 years. Wait.
1998 was 25 years ago.
Oh, yes, it was math.
In fact, 1999 was 25 years ago. Did you notice on Max they are now referring to the Matrix as the 25th anniversary of the Matrix? Yes.
Oh,
Get
oh, hold
ready.
on. Hold on. I need a reboot after that.
There's that
Oh,
squirrel outside. Jeez.
25 years. Wow.
Yeah, 25 years.
Anyways,
Anyway,
as I'm getting old, we have video game news.
we do.
Starting with Kotaku. Hey, we like Kotaku. We
Yeah,
get new stuff from Kotaku.
yeah, we have in the past. Yes.
Yes. But maybe no longer because Kotaku editor-in-chief Jen Glennon has resigned from her role, criticizing the management's team's new strategy. Glennon started her role as Kotaku editor-in-chief on October 10th, 2023, reporting to management at the site's owner, GO Media. However, she today, well, not today, but
Yeah, when the story ran.
As the story, announced her resignation on Twitter X, saying, quote, some personal news, I've resigned from Kotaku, and Jim Spanfeller is an herb, end quote. The herb comment is a reference to a long-running insult aimed at GO Media CEO Jim Spanfeller, as detailed in a Slate article from 2019. More information on Glennon's departure was reported by Aftermath, which itself consists mostly of former Kotaku staff. Aftermath received a copy of Glennon's resignation letter, in which she told Spanfeller and Deputy Editorial Director Leah Goldman that she disagreed with the decision to focus the site's priorities on guides instead of news.
Okay, so there's some layers to the story. First of all, for context, you have to know kind of a little bit of the history here. So as they mentioned, Kotaku is one of several sites that are owned now by a company called GO Media. And if you know anything about GO Media, they have taken over these sites and basically running them into the ground. So this includes a lot of the other sites under the Gawker umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So if you recall, Gawker shut down a few years ago because of the way that GO ran it. This also originally was where the feminist blog site Jezebel was hosted. They now have since become a separate entity spun off from GO. And this is also Deadspin, the politics / sports vertical. I don't remember their sports, but yeah, the vertical also was run. So this company kind of, and Jim Spanfeller as CEO kind of gathered all of them, purchased all of them, and then just depleted their resources, changed what they do. Deadspin now has been in the news for taking an AI leaning route. So apparently a lot of its stories are now AI generated because they fired a lot of the staff writers. And now we have Kotaku, which is now being basically stripped of its one thing that it did well its entire existence, which is news. Kotaku was the news games website. It changed actually how game news was reported. I was listening to a podcast recently where they kind of talked about somebody who had been in the industry for a while, kind of talked about that change, where the classic, GameSpot IGN approach used to be, oh, well, we don't report on rumors or speculation. We just tell you the story based on press releases and the official line. Kotaku came and changed all that. And the reason why it became as popular as it did, because it was willing to do the rumor stories. It was willing to do the more opinion-led pieces. It was writer driven. It was about oh, I go to listen to this person's take on this story as opposed to the company's take on the story. And it changed permanently how video game journalism was done. Kotaku, incredibly important to how we now report on games. That being said, with this corporate overlord, it's become less and less vital, as it's become kind of a revolving door of people who join on, like, are very excited to change, like, have their opinions set on the site, and like steer the site's reporting a certain direction, and then they eventually leave because of decisions made by Geo and Spanfeller. And this is just another example of that. But the most egregious yet, as that last sentence proves, he wants to make it a guide site, which is the other thing that I want to talk about real briefly. That's been kind of the direction that a lot of these sites have been taken by their corporate overlords, is guides, because guides content is extremely popular. I mean, what do you do when you get stuck in a video game, right? You Google it. And what are the first like results? It's all these sites that have created guides that are really quick, like ways to just reference, like, oh, this is how to solve this puzzle. This is where this item is. And then you close it and you move on in the game. It's a resource that a lot of people who play video games use, and that drives a lot of traffic to your website.
It drives the clicks.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only thing
it
is that
views, drives the eyes.
Yeah, but when you're losing something that's so vital as the kind of reporting that Kotaku does, I don't blame a CEO for bailing, or not CEO, an editor in chief, for bailing on that, because it's like, well, no, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I wanted to do at Kotaku. This is no longer the site that like I wanted to run. And so, yeah, this makes sense. And this just keeps happening over and over and over again. And it will, until somebody else buys Kotaku, or maybe they just run it into the ground like they did with Gawker. Like, I don't know. It's brutal to watch this happen continuously with all these sites. And it is like a piece of the old internet kind of dying.
Yeah, but this is also what happens when entities come in and buy, make stakes, basically want to turn a profit.
Yeah.
That they see it strictly for dollar signs and not for the information and valuable resource that it provides.
Yeah, ultimately, it sucks, but we will still have Video Game Chronicle holding up the last bastion of just pure video game news, and I appreciate them for it. But how long until they're bought by some sort of giant conglomerate and ran into the ground? Who knows? It's the internet now, and that's just how these things work.
I don't know. Do self Giant Bomb?
Giant Bomb still exists. It's not a news site in any form anymore. Maybe once upon a time it was. Yeah. They're still cooking. They're still doing video content. They're still hanging out.
Yeah. And then there was Waypoint, which I think went away.
So Waypoint, Vice ended it, and then Vice also ended.
Yes, then Vice ended.
But the people from Waypoint are now behind the independent company Remap, where they still do podcasts, blogging, and video content.
Okay.
So, and Aftermath, who they mentioned in the story, is also one of those independent crowdsourced companies that are kind of carrying the torch for those classic websites. So, as I want to end all these video game press stories with, the best way to support the old style, the classic style, the stuff that needs to exist, the really good stories about video games, is to support these independent companies like Aftermath, Remap. There's plenty of other ones. In fact, from the larger Geo universe, support 404 Media, who are a bunch of old tech reporters from some of their verticals, and also there was another one. I'm blanking on it, but that's okay. But yeah, go search your favorite writers. They probably started something new, and go support it by supporting their subscription-based models. And this stuff can continue to exist.
Yep, that's what I was trying to get for. So I was thinking for, like, where do those guys go?
Yeah, most of them have. Yes, you're right. Most of them they bailed and formed their own thing. So yeah, go support that. Go support the people that you love.
All right.
All right.
So let's move into something that you love to play.
Yes.
The Show, not this show.
Yeah.
But The Show, MLB's The Show.
Yeah, it's that time of year again. We are almost into the new baseball season. And of course, a new baseball season brings a new baseball video game with The Show 24. So we've talked a little bit about this game in the run-up to it, including some of the features that are new or continuing from last year. The kind of play the like important moments in baseball is back from last year's game. I talked in length about it last year, about how cool it was, especially the stuff with the Negro Leagues. Negro League season 2 is in this one, so even more stories from that era of baseball. Again, just like last year, if you're interested at all in the history of the Negro Leagues, and watching Ken Burns baseball to not give you enough information, this is a perfect way to learn and live those moments and experience those people that made those leagues so special, and then went on to make an impact in Major League Baseball once it was integrated. So yeah, it's very, very cool that they're continuing to do that. Parallel to that, they also have some more modern, like I forget the name of the mode, but yeah, they have the more modern storylines. Is it storylines? It might be storylines. Mode where you get to follow Derek Jeter and some of the important events in his career, which is kind of an interesting thing if you're interested in Jeter at all. But the other new thing that they're doing this year in the show 24, which I have jumped right into, is for the first time ever in the series, you can create a female ball player. You can be a woman in any of the modes. So this, and I mean any of the modes. So if you want to make a franchise and incorporate women into it, you create a bunch of women and have a fully integrated men and women baseball team. And then also in the Road to the Show, you can start as a woman, and it actually fully changes the storyline of your career. So whereas the traditional Road to the Show mode is you start, you get immediately drafted, you start in the minors and work your way up to the majors. If you choose a woman, this is slightly different this year. There is a brand new storyline that involves you and your friend who you played high school softball with having parallel careers in the MLB. So you kind of chat with each other on the phone and discuss like, oh, we're about to go to the draft. Are you excited? Oh, we're going to go to the combine. Are you excited to show off? Oh, we're going to meet each other for the first time in the minors. Like, are you excited to play against me? And it's pretty cool. Like it's something that they did more of a few years back in the Road to the Show mode that they're bringing back into the mode. So if you missed the dialogue choices and the more story-driven approach to Road to the Show, it's back this year. And I'm happy to see it because I kind of missed it over the last couple of years where they went more mechanics-based, less story-based. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing that happens as you go, obviously, there's a whole storyline that's talking about like, you are the first woman to be drafted, you're the first woman to be in the minors, and you're the first woman to be in majors as you go in. And so they've done the Road to the Show segments as they've done in the past, where they record real people from MLB Network talking about you as if you're a real person. And so it's them talking about like, you not naming you, but saying like, wow, the first woman in the game, wow, it must be really hard for her to do this. It really shows how much of a competitor she is. And it's really cool to see these real people talk about your fake person.
That's one thing I like about the Madden games during the Superstar mode is that they do the interstitials like that, but then also you have like your player friend who's also in the league with you.
Right.
So I feel like they took cues from that.
Yeah.
Into here.
Hey, if it works, why not try it out? And I think that it's
steal from the best. Yeah.
Exactly.
Not that Madden is the best, but
no. But I think that this year's The Show might have an argument for that, because the other thing is that all of those new things are pretty cool. But the best news about The Show 24 is that they've really ironed out the experience this year. I've seen the fewest bugs, visual and gameplay wise, that I've seen in the show in a few years. Caveat on this, I've heard that the Switch version has been really inconsistent for people and it's crashing a lot. So maybe avoid the Switch version of the game. However, playing on Xbox Series X, I'm having a great time with it. Haven't run into any issues except for the occasional time where it will disconnect from the servers, and then you just have to back out, start again. But generally speaking, it's been a very smooth experience. There's no real big gameplay changes this year. A lot of stuff is carried on from last year's game. Visually, it pops a bit more. I love the presentation this year. It's back to that kind of fun, less clinical version that it was 2 years ago, as opposed to last year's very static looking game. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and my Road to the Show experience has been pretty awesome. Taking Pitch 2, the sequel to Pitch, aka Natalie, through the league. I do want to mention one thing though. I'm actually playing. I had to start over my Road to the Show. I started initially as I usually do, which is going into the Angels franchise,
Yeah.
but as a closing pitcher, not anticipating that I was going to be stuck in Salt Lake forever because they were never going to replace Carlos Estevez with me.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, so I was like, oh shit, it's gonna take me forever to get better than Estevez. They already have a closer. They're never gonna move me up. So I decided to bail completely, delete that character, and start again. And then I thought, well, this time I'm gonna let the fates decide. So instead of saying I absolutely want to join the Angels, I did the more realistic thing and be like, I'm just gonna draft wherever they put
Get
me, right?
drafted.
So say hello to the first female pitcher for the Colorado Rockies organization.
Rocky Mountain
So
High.
yeah, I'm wearing the purple. In fact,
Okay.
I decided that when she got called up, that she would dye her hair purple. So she currently has purple hair. Um, so yeah, and I started out as like an amazing like 0.75 ERA pitcher in the minors. I was killing it. I was amazing. I was playing full games. Oh, by the way, I wasn't a closer anymore. I moved to starting pitcher
Oh,
because
you
I
moved
was
back to
like,
starting.
I want to stretch this experience out a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I switched to a starter, also increased my odds of being called up. So yeah, I did that, and but then well in like the first couple months into my major league career, when I was finally called up, I started actually having some problems, and now I'm like the third winningest pitcher on the Rockies. I'm like slowly tumbling from where I used to be because I'm facing like way better hitters. Um, but I did strike out Otani, so
Okay.
I've got that going for me.
Otani Dodgers or Otani Angels?
Dodger Otani because it's current.
Okay.
Well, I would say it's current, but it's not super current. There are some names that I noticed were elsewhere. But the other
Yes.
thing you have to keep in mind with the Road to the Show mode is sometimes like fictional transactions will happen in the
Hmm.
background that they won't tell you that have happened. So all of a sudden I'll face a Angels team where suddenly Mike Trout isn't in the lineup and I'll be like, is he hurt? What happened? And I have to look and dig into the roster stuff and be like, is he even on the Angels anymore? What happened here? Like Anthony Rendon was on AAA. I was like, oh, did he get hurt again? Like stuff like that. So yeah, it was fun. So yeah, I'm still kicking through that. I'll probably keep playing because yeah, the thing about the show is that when it's at its best, it's just a smooth, playable experience that you can just kind of just play forever, and you can just keep going and rolling with, and try to just get better, increase your stats over and over again. Except for fucking pitching clutch, which every time somebody hits a homer off of me, it goes down like an entire thing, and I feel like I can never catch it. That's this one stat I can never catch up. Apparently, I'm not very clutch as a pitcher.
I mean, that's what happens in normal baseball too, is that as
Right.
soon as you give up one home run, then the floodgates open and just getting hit after hit after hit on.
I think the show, like, it's funny that you mentioned that, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. But like, I think it was like last year when I was playing, I feel like I finally something clicked in my head where it's like, well, this is why baseball is such a fluky game.
Hmm.
Like in real life, when you're like watching and struggling as, say, an Angels fan, you're like wondering, like, why do we have these stretches where it's like everything's working out, everything's clicking, and then we take the exact same people into a new series against a team that we should objectively beat, and all of a sudden we're screwing up and there's errors and there's like everything's going wrong. It's not you, it's baseball. Is I think what I've realized playing the show is that it's very real, where you could have a really awesome streak where you're just like lights out pitching, and then there'll be a game that everything you're doing, all of your pitches, just they're finding ways to hit them. They're finding ways to stretch out of the zone and getting stuff out of nowhere, where even the commentators are confused. There was one where I pitched like it was a change up way outside because I was trying to get them to chase. And he hit it on like the tip, and it somehow managed to go full left field to the corner for a double. And the commentator was even like, I don't know how he managed to get distance out of that ball. He shouldn't have. Physics says that should not have gotten the distance that it did. And I'm like sitting there like, yeah, you're telling me, bud. That doesn't make any sense, but that's baseball for you.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see the mechanics of it in front of you in that intimate kind of way. It makes me appreciate people who actually play the game, because it's like, man, this is hard. It's hard to be good at baseball, turns out.
Yeah, there's a reason they get paid hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars.
Turns out.
To throw a little ball.
And to throw other things potentially, as we use this as a segue into our second half of the show, where we start with television and we start with sports. I am laughing because of the story we are going to talk about this week. Oh boy,
yeah,
what did
so
you see?
You brought up Ohtani.
Yeah, I mentioned Ohtani.
You struck out Ohtani.
Yes. Oh yeah, I didn't mention though. Later in the next time I met with the Dodgers in my season, Ohtani got 2 doubles off of me. So again, fluky. But the real Ohtani has been in the news this week, and not necessarily for positive reasons like usual.
Oh, by the way, we slid into television, into the sports corner.
I mentioned that. Yes, television. We always start with the sports corner, and our sports story has dominated the sports conversation this week and involves the golden boy himself, Shohei Ohtani, and his translator, Ippei, who, when they were on the Angels, were beloved by everyone. Well, the luster may have worn off a little bit on the Shohei Ippei friendship, and we're going to go into why that has happened. Lawyers for Shohei Ohtani have said that he has been a victim of massive theft, that's in quotes, after reporters asked an Ohtani spokesman questions about why $4.5 million in wire transfers had been sent from Ohtani's bank account to a bookmaking operation. That's sports gambling, in case you don't know the lingo. The theft allegation came after a spokesman initially told ESPN that Ohtani had transferred the funds to cover the gambling debts of Ohtani's former interpreter and friend, Ippei Mizuhara. In a subsequent interview with Mizuhara, he told ESPN he had not been truthful, that Ohtani had no knowledge of his gambling activities, debts, or efforts to repay him. So,
and here's where all the news gets very murky.
So, on its face, what the Ohtani camp wants you to believe, what they're saying happened in this case is Ippei had gambling debt. Gambling on what? Who knows? Gambling with whom? They actually do know. A connection came out with a sports book guy from here, actually in Southern California, who was already under investigation for his involvement in sports gambling, which I need to remind people, because some people maybe don't live in California who listen to this podcast, is illegal in California. It's important to mention this. Sports gambling has been legalized in several states in the US, but California is not one of them, which means that if you run such an operation, you are actually doing illegal activities.
It was struck down on the ballot last year, not this past couple of weeks, but last year, November, calendar year.
So yeah, so this guy, Matthew something, I forget his last name, is tied to this. And so his name, I guess, came up in the transactions. Also that came up from that digging is that the transactions were in Ohtani's name.
Matthew Boyer.
But yeah, also that came out here is that these transactions were in Ohtani's name, which adds some wrinkles to what the Ohtani camp is saying here. So allegedly, what they're saying is that Ohtani, out of the kindness of his heart, gave Ippei money to cover these debts. But quickly, after the story came out, made sure to say, Ohtani did not know that that's what the money was for. Ohtani did not know that it was to cover gambling debts. He is completely unrelated to the gambling story, and that he was only helping out a friend. Of course, as you might imagine, people have ran with this and started speculating, hey, but what if they're not telling the whole story here? Isn't it fishy, potentially? This is what these people are saying. isn't it fishy potentially that they changed the story so quickly that all of a sudden it wasn't Ohtani helping out cover the gambling debts, but that Ohtani was just helping him out, not knowing what the $4.5 million was for. That question, like no question, he was just like, sure, I'll write you a check. Here you go. I'm kind Ohtani.
Well, they were, well, because it eventually came out that they were multiple $500,000 payments on a recurring basis.
Right. Which really makes you wonder what it was for. So, yes, sports Twitter and all sorts of communities around baseball and sports in general have ran with the story, started coming up with all sorts of things that could have happened, including that it was Ohtani that's actually doing the gambling here, that he is the one in debt, and so that these books were his and not Ippei's, that Ippei is just the fall guy that they're putting in front of this story to like avoid the conversation about whether Ohtani has been betting on sports. A lot of people are speculating whether this is Pete Rose version 2 about like this is a major star in the sport potentially going to go down on gambling charges and have his I guess his legacy tarnished forever. So it got to the point where so much of this conversation was happening that the league has officially said that they are opening an investigation. The investigation has opened just a couple of days ago, and thus that's kind of all we're going to know for a while, because one thing that happens when there's an open investigation is that nobody can comment on it. So even if you ask, say, the Angels, the organization where if these rumors were true, Ohtani was gambling actively during his time, you can't ask the Angels any questions. The franchise, well, anybody involved in the franchise, because they just will have to say, sorry, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation. But it does mean that in a few, who knows, weeks, months, we may have more.
You think they're going to close this investigation?
Maybe. I don't know. It probably will last longer than that. But maybe someday we'll find out what's actually happening here, because where I stand, it is a little fishy. It all doesn't really add up. And as much as it would be easy to say, like, well, this is just Ippei. Oh, by the way, the other thing that I didn't mention is that the Dodgers did fire Ippei because of this. As soon as this came out, basically they were like, all right, cool, you're gone. And translation duties for Ohtani will be now handed to the same in-team translator as their other Japanese player, Yamamoto. So he will continue being translated. It just won't be Ippei doing it. And it does bring into question, were they friends, Ippei and Ohtani? Was this an act? Are they still friends? Was this all just a ploy to distract from something bigger underneath? There's so many questions, and maybe we'll get answers to them, but we'll see.
It is weird that this story comes out right before the season starts.
Yes.
When the Dodgers were in South Korea to promote the beginning of the season. That maybe it's just the I won't say it's the Dodgers' way of getting Ippei out, but it does have that kind of fringe to it.
It's another element that maybe is part of this. But it is, I think the most interesting part about this is if this is something that has been happening for years, how did this never get dug up when he was on the Angels?
I mean, you also have the conspiracy theories going around. Super conspiracy theories about how Ohtani potentially throwing games when he was on the Angels.
I also heard this where people have like very specific games that they bring up. It's like, I was there at this specific game and I knew that he was Ohtani was in conversation with somebody in like Korea or something. And like, I knew that they said that, oh, well, if you do this specific thing and lose the specific game, it'll be good for that person's bottom line and good for you. And I'm just like, what?
Right, because the one thing you need for the 2-time MVP of the league is for him to do worse.
Yeah, right.
Wait, no, other way. It'd be that he did worse and still won the MVP. So the only positive outcome would be that he's better than you all think he is.
Right. And again, it almost circles back to our conversation about baseball being a fluky game. The thing about it being such a fluky game is that you can basically prop up your stupid throwing games argument by just saying like, well, if Ohtani's so good all the time, why'd he lose this game? Why'd he pitch so badly here in this game last season? Like, yeah, that you think that supports your argument, but does it though? I don't know. There's so many layers here, so many things to get into. And like I said, because if there's an official investigation, we probably won't know a whole lot for a while. We're just going to have to go into, but yeah, you're right. The timing is interesting because now we're going into the very first season of Ohtani as a Dodger. Not as excited as we could have been a week ago, like we're going in with like now Ohtani's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, probably. He needs to
Now,
prove something.
as it comes in, it's not, oh, is Otani going to be a
Yeah,
AL, NL
right.
MVP? It's, oh, you bring up
It's,
Otani? Oh,
yeah,
what do you think about the cheating scandal?
it's complicated now. It
Hmm.
complicates what was going to be the golden season for Ohtani, this big breakout. Oh, he's on a team where he could win the World Series season. That's no longer going to be the conversation. The conversation is going to be complicated now. And all I can say is, as an Angels fan, it's none of my business. That's kind of the vibe that I'm going to take into the season. Like, every time that conversation goes up, sip my Kermit sipping tea meme. None of my business. That's none of my
Well, I
business.
mean, he is being paid $700 million in a contract, but only $2 million per year.
Oh yeah. By the way, have you seen that theory, which is like saying like, oh, now it makes sense. I saw somebody tweet this. Like now it makes sense why he deferred is because he has a gambling addiction, and that if he had all of that money at once, he'd blow it all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The weirdos are coming out of the woodwork on this guy.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, we can't, as I said in the text to our Angels chat, we're all having a very normal one out here about this, and it's wonderful to watch. So
Yes,
yes,
it is.
we'll continue having a normal one as we report the rest of the season. As the season will start, like I said, before we talk on this podcast next week, there will be more baseball than just games that happen at 3 a.m. in South Korea.
Yes, there is, because spring training finale is upon us.
It ended for a lot of seasons yesterday, a lot of teams yesterday.
But not for all teams.
Yeah, most teams. So yeah, in the MLB news, as we move on to headlines for the leagues here, we did have our first official games this season, as I mentioned, in South Korea, where the Dodgers, with said Shohei Ohtani, beat the San Diego Padres 5-2 after the first baseman's glove broke in the proper season opener. I did not watch this happen because, again, 3 a.m. But
The clip was going around when I
yeah,
woke up that he went for a ground ball and just right through the middle of the net, just ball just popped in.
I've heard of this happening, but I've never seen it, so I should watch
Yeah,
that
yeah, the
clip.
glove just busted open, on the
Yeah,
first game of the season.
you need a new glove
And
if
then
that
that ended up
happens.
with the Dodgers with a hitting rally because they didn't
Yeah,
get the out. So it's a 2-out rally, and they ended up going up 5-2. And that was just the end of the game there.
yeah. But it started out pretty favorable for the Dodgers, but quickly San Diego took over the next game, winning 15-11. Um, so both teams coming out of the gate looking pretty good, I'd say, in general.
Yep. Yep, a split series. They each get one win under their belt to start the season.
Yeah,
And yeah, 15 runs.
that's pretty high.
That's pretty
That's a
good.
football score, as they say. Well,
Yes,
not
it's a
quite. If it
football
was
score.
15-12, then that's a football score. But they were almost there.
Yes.
And then, yeah, like you said, spring training wraps up, and then all teams will start on the proper opening day, which is this week on Thursday, the 28th. So get your cable subscriptions ready because regional sports networks, you got to pay for them.
We'll see.
Yeah, hey, Amazon has what, 4 days to figure their stuff out for
Yep.
Bally. I'm not putting my money on it, is what I'm saying. I have to scramble now to figure out how I'm going to watch.
Yep. Or the ads.
Yeah, I
Are we
looked
gonna
at
do this?
all sorts of options and all of them are too expensive. I'm just like, well, what am I gonna do? I don't know. I'll figure it out. But anyway, let's
Anyways,
move
yeah,
on.
baseball is rapidly approaching as season begins on Thursday.
And what that always means is that means that other sports are ending. The season for both basketball and hockey is wrapping up soon. The basketball season will end on April the 14th, and the hockey season will end on April the 18th. So we will soon be into the playoffs.
We are less than a month away for the seasons to end. so far in hockey, no team has clinched a playoff berth officially yet.
Officially.
Like numeric, like stat wise, like there's no clinching, but it did warm my heart to see that the Anaheim Ducks did officially be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Fair enough. All right. Well,
and then we're in basketball. Still, the Celtics are the only ones to have clinched a playoff spot.
All right. Well, so keep an eye on those if you are excited about those playoffs. We'll have more news about playoffs in the coming weeks. In the meantime, speaking of basketball, we move to, of course, college basketball, where March continues to be mad. And
it was
we
Madden,
have
all right.
your breaking tournament brackets. Your brackets have broken because we have the update.
You don't want to say busted?
Broken, busted, same thing.
Busted brackets.
Busted brackets abound. We want to go for that b sound.
Yeah, we do.
As we have updates for your NCAA tournament. Number 11 seed Duquesne.
Duquesne. Yes.
Did I say that right? Won over number 6 seed BYU. Number 14 seed Oakland won against number 3 seed Kentucky.
That is Oakland, Michigan, not Oakland, California.
Very different. Number 11 seed North Carolina State won over number 6 seed Texas Tech. Number 11 seed Oregon won over number 6 seed South Carolina. Number 13 seed Yale won over number 4 Auburn. And number 12 Grand Canyon University. Yes, that GCU won over number 5 seed St. Mary's. Busted. Just so many people are just broken over this now.
Yeah, because who picked Grand Canyon University except the 12 people who went there?
Yeah, all those people went online and
yeah, this all happened in the first round. Second round continued between yesterday and today. But this is part of the good thing about college basketball is that a lot of these players, it's going to be their last time playing basketball. They're not going to go on to like the NBA and get millions of dollars. That they're going to be doctors, lawyers, restaurateurs, product managers. These kids, I can say they're kids now because they're a lot younger than me. Get this one chance, this 40 minutes, this one shining moment.
I was gonna say, you're gonna say it? Yep, you did.
I was getting there.
Yeah, one shining moment.
To play against these guys who will go on to like be MVPs, all-stars, NBA, like brand house names.
Yeah.
And get that one chance to say, I beat that guy. I beat them.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have that opportunity. So it's cool to see these underdogs win. I think that it's fun. That's why, of course, I don't make a bracket because I'd be terrible at it. But it's fun to watch from a distance and be like, oh yeah, it's fun to see like some weird ass 13 seed like win like a favorite and just completely throw people's expectations off. How did by the way, how did Long Beach State do?
Oh, they lost twice.
They lost bad. Okay. I figured they would, but
yeah, they were out at the beginning. Lost 20 points to number 2 Arizona, who did move on. So after this weekend so this weekend was the first 2 rounds. Next weekend is the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. We will not know who will be in the Final 4 until next time. No, we'll know who's roughly in the Final 4. Actually, we might not because the finals will play on the 31st and we record on the 31st. So we won't know who's going to be in the late 8 or the championship. And I guess technically we won't even know who's going to win by the time we podcast the following.
So yeah, it won't be just March. It will be some April madness for you as we will have to wait to report on those.
Yeah, because we'll know the Final 4 when we record on April 7. Okay. The championship will be the 8th. So we'll at least know who's in it by then.
So stay mad until April.
We're going to get mad because this, though our schedule is infuriating, not lining up with the bracket.
Hey, you know what? These things happen. All right. With that, let's move on. Is there any other sports stories that we need to cover before we move on to television?
I mean, we covered the biggest sports story, which is both the men's bracket, but there is the women's bracket going on as well.
That is true.
Uh, except ESPN is terrible at reporting the bracket for it.
Well.
Here we go. There it is. Let me see if there's any big upsets. Does not look like it.
Okay.
No, it looks like all the ones who were supposed to win won.
So those brackets are intact.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's move on then, and for the sake of time, and move on to our television story of the week here, which is a union update. Another one of the pending negotiations that we weren't sure how it would go was about the animation contract for television animators. So thankfully, we have some good news. I say that with a little hesitation because I think that the entire story, as you dig into it, isn't super positive. But in general, it is positive because a deal was struck. SAG-AFTRA members have voted overwhelmingly to approve a new TV animation contract. The new animation voice acting agreement was ratified by 95.52% of SAG.
And
The new
that is
contract,
95% of those who voted, by the
of
way,
those who
not
voted.
the entire SAG-AFTRA.
The new contract includes a 7% raise, backdated to July 1st, 2023, as well as protections against so-called artificial intelligence software, according to the Guild. The AI provisions define the term voice acting as only pertaining to human beings. While the deal doesn't forbid the use of AI, specifically to replicate human voices, the recognizability requirement that applies to performers' rights has been adjusted to account for the fact voice actors often do use voices unlike their own, the Guild said. The new contract also makes changes to high-budget video on demand residuals for ad-supported video on demand, improvements to how voice actors are classified for ADR work, mandated sheet music if actors are required to sing, and formal recognition of Juneteenth and Martin Luther King Jr. Day as holidays. So some important movement here. The AI stuff is a little complicated, as it has been in a lot of these negotiations. It's not like as I feel like as buttoned down, this is exactly what we're saying to prohibit AI as it could be. But it's a step in the right direction. And I think generally speaking, this seems like a win for the animation voice actors.
Yeah, there's a lot more details that go into the story about the AI provisions, but these are just some of the main highlights because, as it mentions in the story, a lot of people, a lot of voice actors don't use their own voice. They usually imitate other voices.
Right. Yes.
So if you're going to do an imitation of another voice, you're contracted now to SAG-AFTRA to use a voice actor to imitate said voice and not just have an AI program using that instead.
Yeah, it hopefully will protect over a lot of situations in which they could have just placed an AI voice in there. Now they'll be prohibited from doing that within the rules of this contract. So it's, like I said, a great step in the right direction, I think. So congratulations, we avoided a strike. So that means this affects both animated shows and video games. This will no longer be a potential strike zone.
Right. Yeah, this is voice actors for SAG-AFTRA as we now have another contract written down.
Yes. Good
and
news.
Yet again, talking about the looming threat of AI, which we'll see what happens 4 years down the road.
Yeah, we'll see if it gets worse, better, who knows. There'll be some new thing that we'll be pissed off about, I'm sure. Speaking of yet again, it is time for you to talk about Physical 100.
It's back.
It's back.
It's back on Netflix. It's here. It's there. There's 100 people everywhere.
They're physical.
They're 100. They're physical. 100. First 4 episodes are up on Netflix. They do the sorting. They do the running. There's a lot more running in this one now. But they have a couple of returning people and a couple of just clearly well chiseled, defined bodybuilders out there that just sometimes it makes you jealous just looking at these people like, how does the body both look like this and as beefy as this?
I'm all the time asking myself this.
So yeah, it's back. The season 1, as I talked about 2 years ago now, one of my favorite shows when it came out. I was instantly hooked with it. Same thing here, instantly hooked. but the same kind of format applies. It's not doing anything new, as I haven't seen anything new yet. Some of the challenges are new, but it's still the breakdown of we're going to rank you, and then we're going to do death matches, and then we're going to do team events to help like whittle down the competition. So it's fun. It's interesting. I like seeing what they're doing with it. And I will continue to be watching Physical 100.
All right. Well, I guess there's nothing really else to say about that. I was like, well, I don't really have a response. It's just it's if you like that show, there's more of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I liked it. So when it's coming back, I was like, yes, I'm all in for it. It doesn't need to change up its formula. There's
No,
nothing
guess
wrong with the way it was in the first season, which is why I really liked it. They just nailed it right out of the gate.
Turns out, hey, if you figure out a formula that works, it works.
Mhm.
All right. Well, in that case, let's move on into cancellations and renewals.
What am I no longer watching?
You are no longer watching LA Fire and Rescue as it's been canceled after one season on NBC.
This was the 911 ripoff that NBC tried to do.
I see. Also on NBC, canceled after one season, was Hot Wheels Ultimate Challenge, which I didn't even know this existed. So
You no longer need to know that it exists.
No longer need to know. On NBC sister streaming network Peacock, they have canceled Bupkis after one season. Was this the Pete Davidson?
Yes,
vehicle?
it
Okay.
originally got a season 2, but now it's been officially canceled before they started production on season 2.
Got it. Meanwhile, Uncoupled has been canceled after one season on Showtime/Netflix, so that is done.
Yeah, another one of those shows where it was picked up for a second season by Netflix. I think it was on Showtime, then picked up by Netflix, and then canceled officially.
Bailed on it.
Yep, bailed on it.
NCIS Sydney will be getting a second season on CBS.
That's Way Home, it's an NCIS show.
I mean, yeah, it's going to last for a while.
Yes.
The Way Home will get a third season on Hallmark. SkyMed will get a third season on Paramount Plus. And then NBC went ahead and renewed most of their procedural content here, starting with Law and Order, the reboot of the show that had originally been canceled and then was brought back. Will get a 24th season, so it will keep going. Law and Order SVU will get a 26th season. Chicago Fire, 13th season. Chicago PD, a 12th season. Chicago Med, a 10th season. So the Chicago verse continues to run strong.
Your Chicago Wednesdays continue.
Chicago Wednesdays.
As they have been for the past 10 years.
Yeah, a decade of Chicago, if you can believe it. Then, lastly, here we have one death to talk about. David Seidler, age 86, the screenwriter for The King's Speech. Oscar winner, The King's Speech.
Yes, and a film that you recently talked about.
Yes.
On March Madness.
March Madness, yes. Not necessarily praising the screenplay of The King's Speech, but that's fine. It's fine. That movie's okay. All right, let's move into then movie section. Speaking of movies, where we start as always with the box office numbers. Your number one movie debuting to $44 million this week was Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. So enough people must still care about Ghostbusters to see this film.
It got a B+ cinema score, so it's better,
I guess.
Yeah.
Number two, Dune Part 2 still held on with another $16 million. That's at a whopping $232 million. Considering when that came out, that's a lot of money already.
Yes, and with that, it officially passes the world total that Dune Part 1 made.
Yeah, so it's had a big hit, guys.
I mean, there's also the caveat that Dune Part 1 came out in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, and it was a streaming co-release, and it's complicated. Number three, Kung Fu Panda 4 with another $14.5 million. That's at 130, doing pretty well. Number four, Immaculate. That's the Sydney Sweeney Nun movie. $5 million in its debut this week. And then wrapping up your top five, Arthur the King with another $4 million. That's at $14 million. That is your box office for this week. Coming up this week, we have a new king of the box office, aka king of all monsters, as Godzilla is back, this time teaming up with King Kong in Godzilla X-Con, or as you would say,
Cross.
Yes, I wanted you to do the thing again. The New Empire. That is out this week. So if you've been waiting for Godzilla and King Kong to have misadventures together, wait no longer. Go to a theater this week and you can see more Hollow Earth conspiracy, weird ass monster action.
The extension of the MonsterVerse from the Apple TV show Monarch.
Sure. Anyway, so yeah, go for it. If you want more Godzilla, there it is.
Yeah, because when Godzilla's gonna put God back into Easter Sunday.
Yeah, he's doing that single-handedly. He's very faithful, that Godzilla. Yes. That's why God's in his name. Let's move on to the last thing we'll do today, which is talk about movie news. And our movie news this week is a crossover with the video game section.
You mean a cross?
Yes, a crossover. Thank you. With the video game section, but not the one you'd think as an easy adaptation. No, The Sims. They're making a Sims movie, people, or at least they're going to try. Kate Herron, who did something with Loki. I don't know what.
The showrunner for Loki.
Thank you. You just had a name and a role, or name and a thing that they did, and I didn't know what they did. Is attached to tackle an adaptation of the Sims game franchise. Herron will also co-write the screenplay with Bryony Redman. Lucky Chap, which of course you would recognize as the production company run by Margot Robbie, Tom Ackerley, Josie McNamara, and Sophia Kerr, will produce the feature along with publisher Electronic Arts, which will be also involved in a creative and producing capacity. No official word if Robbie herself will star in the film or not. Also, no word on what this film will be. I was trying to think about this with Christy, and all roads led just back to Barbie, right? Which is, what do you do with a Sims movie if not have the Sims become aware that they're in the Sims, right? That someone is controlling their activity. Like, it just seems like that's such a limiting premise. What else would a Sims movie be?
I mean, that's kind of where it goes. I mean, you also have the are we in a simulation?
But again,
aspect.
all roads lead to the same place, right? Because if you have the are we in a simulation, then it's just the Truman Show, right?
Right.
Or it's the Matrix. And like, what else do you do there? What original idea can you do?
I don't know.
Is it about somebody is it actually about somebody controlling the Sims? Is that the angle? Or is it about the Sim? I don't know.
Oh, it's the simulation.
I'm just saying that it seems
will they speak Simoleant though? That's what I want to know. Will they speak Simlish?
Simlish? Yes. Yeah, I want the whole thing to be in Simlish with subtitles. That'd be great. Let's do it. Let's just make this the weirdest esoteric thing possible. I struggle with this. I'm glad that people who get paid more than me are responsible for coming up with the story here, because I couldn't come up with something original here. It's just like, you have so many
beyond just realizing that you're in a Sim.
Yeah. You just have with Barbie, I think that now you just have something that big budget and fully realized did this. Now you can't really do that again.
Right. Well, especially if you're the same production company behind it too.
You can't be one note and just
do the same thing.
Yeah, you can't have every one of your movies be about a thing becomes aware that it's being controlled and wants free will. You can't have every movie do that.
So what do you do then?
I don't know. Like I said, somebody who gets paid more than me to figure this out is going to figure this out, and all power to them. But I'm not super excited, I guess, what I'll say about a Sims movie.
You make it a horror film. You take someone develops like the Green Diamond and fix it over someone's head. So now they control them.
Oh.
So now it's a different type of free will. Like, sure. I don't have free will. Someone's controlling my will.
Okay.
And the person with the diamond goes for a swim. That's how you open it up. Goes for a swimming. They go in the swimming pool. And then all of a sudden they can't find the ladder to get out. They just have to swim constantly.
Yeah, the horror angle is not something I anticipated. Yeah, that would work. That would work. Okay.
Yeah. And then Margo, she's like, wait, where'd the ladder go? Just swim back and forth. Where'd the ladder go? We just panic. Where'd the ladder go?
And then they die.
Yes.
Yeah. And if somebody has to woohoo in a bush, then truly the horrors will be
No,
complete.
the horror is when someone becomes pregnant and then someone all of a sudden doesn't become pregnant and just wait, weren't you pregnant? Were you not pregnant? Is this not
Yeah.
uh a birth a gender reveal party? What are we doing here?
Actually, what they should just do, they should just watch the giant bomb series that they did called 13 Deadly Sims, in which they had all the Sims die from something. They tried to go through all the ways you can make a
Yeah.
Sim die in The Sims 4. And it was truly amazing. Just adapt that into a film and then we're good. All right. Margot
Horror
is
film.
watching
Got
this.
it.
We know Margot watches our podcast every week. So she's definitely taking notes and will definitely listen to us.
Yes. The horror angle for The Sims.
All right. That's it then for movie news. And that's it. Hey, for the podcast. Thank you.
And we're done.
For listening this week. We had a good time with y'all. I don't know why I said that. It just kind of came out.
If you want to have an even better time,
next week
we have March Madness.
Oh, that's true. I
about.
need to plug that. We are in the midst of March Madness, which for us means a bracket not about basketball, but about a media thing that we like. In this case, this year's bracket has been about the best picture winners at the Oscars for the last 16 years. This includes such bangers as Parasite, Spotlight, Moonlight, and other movies that don't have light in the name, such as No Country for Old Men, Slumdog Millionaire, just banger after banger. The King's Speech, like we talked about just a moment
King's
ago.
Speech, yep.
Yes, Everything Everywhere All at Once. All these films discussed and more as we move through the bracket. We are already a round in. We have already discussed the opening round and made our choices. We'll be moving on to the quarterfinals later today. Watch your feed for that. And then the semis and the finals to determine what the best picture of the last 16 years will be next Sunday, the 31st of March. So we will wrap up the month for y'all by wrapping up our March Madness bracket. So tune in to those. Those will be available on YouTube. Just search YouTube for our channel, Media Boat Podcast or just Media Boat Podcast. You'll find us. And those videos are going up along with a real stupid graphic that I made for the cover image. So
I think it's kind of funny too.
Yeah,
I don't think it's stupid. I think it's funny, but it's apt. It fits it.
I'm just going. I don't know. I have a vibe that I'm going for lately.
Yes.
So tune into those. New ones will be going up on that schedule. So check it out. In the meantime, we'll have another regular episode of the show next Sunday as well. So tune in for us to talk about Cowboy Carter, among other things. So yeah, check us out. Media Boat Podcast. We continue to be on all your feeds, including YouTube, where you can see our videos, as I mentioned. You can listen to us in podcast form on podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, search Media Boat and you'll find us. You can also find us mediaboatpodcast.com, where an archive of our stuff is up there in text form. And also you can find us on social media platforms such as Twitter /X, where we're at MediaBoatCast, where on Blue Sky, where we're mediaboat.bluesky.com, I think. And
yes.
then .social, sorry.
Social.
Just search Media Boat and you'll find us. And then also, if you want to ask us questions, give us feedback about the show, anything at all, you can email us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. And we might even read your thing on the show. We haven't got an email in a while. So, hey, folks, get email in. Ask us stuff. Margot, email us. We know you listen.
That's what a good idea we had.
Yeah. And also, kick us some money. You have a lot of that, I understand. And help us out. We're just struggling a little podcast. Patreon. We've only been doing this for 8 years for free. We need a little bit, some like. Anyway.
Now you're shilling. All right.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. See you guys.
We'll be back next week. More news, more thoughts, like you said, Cowboy Carter, and more of us.
Yep. See ya.
Okay, bye.